one that you get to listen to drone on for the next little bit, but I'll try and keep it as short and concise as I can, but certainly hit all the highlights that kind of put us or evolved to have us result in the position that we're in. But first, I'd like to, there's a number of staff with us today to address your questions, so I'd like to at least introduce them. So starting back here, we have Lori Bedford, she's our General Manager of Corporate Services. Bruce Hockey is our General Manager of Infrastructure Development. Rick Battery is our Director of Engineering. Allison Vaughn is our Director of Finance. Shifting over here, we have Jennifer Best at the end there, who's our Director of Planning, Chad Horn, who's our Director of Public Works, and Pam Fettis, who is our clerk, and Pam Slowly, who is our deputy clerk. So this is the staff team that have been diligently working away on this matter for literally years. So by way of a little bit of a background, and I'll tell you now, I'm not much of a podium guy, so I may wander every now and then, but I'll get back to it. So by way of background, the 2022 water demand update, which was presented to council in May of 2023, if you haven't had a chance to review that report, I would strongly suggest you do. It does provide a fairly good picture or update of where things are and what we're currently working on with respect to the various projects. So Rick's crew in our engineering department provides that update on an annual basis, so I would strongly recommend you have a look at that. That was in May of this year, which gives a full picture of the water situation. We did go through, as part of that exercise, there was a number of pieces of information brought forward by our engineering people that primarily we are okay with respect to the water provision for our current approved developments and our existing residents. So I know there's always a lot of concern when people start to hear about, you know, the availability of water or the supply of water, but the town is in, you know, more than adequate supply for our existing residents, and that's in all of our communities, as well as the approved developments that we have on our books. There is, however, a need, obviously, for an expansion to that water supply for any future developments that we'd be looking to approve. So recognizing that need, the recommendations that council did adopt with respect to that water demand update was that subdivisions and residential site plans that were connected to the Alliston and Beaton water system be delayed for final approval and registration until the town does have sufficient water supply to allow them to proceed to construction. Site plans and subdivisions connected to the Tottenham water system will be processed, provided obviously that they are in keeping with the town's official plan. So along with those pieces of information, given that there's new legislation, and I'm sure all of you are more than aware, the provincial legislation that's come forward over the past few months, there's a need for the town to set aside certain amounts of water for infill type developments or new homes on existing lots, basement apartments, additional dwellings with existing lots, things like that. So that has been compensated for in our modeling, so you will see that in that water update report, that there is a small amount of water that's allocated just for that, and we feel that that's the best way that the town can certainly be acting responsibly, because we know that type of development will be occurring. When it comes to industrial developments, there is water being set aside as well for industrial developments that we know that are proceeding or that we anticipate. So there is, again, you'll see in that water update report, some allocation for pending industrial development. Now, we always get the question is, can council reallocate water from industrial development to residential development? Yes, absolutely they can. That is council's prerogative. They can reallocate that. What we are looking at, though, is once we're seeing sort of the lay of the land over the next little while, with the next water supply update report, which I think will be spring of 24, then we've suggested to council that you may want to wait until that point in time before you start to consider any reallocation. Now, having said that, as I said previously, it is council's prerogative as to when or if they choose to reallocate water that's been set aside for industrial, move it to residential. But what we've suggested is, given what we know right now and what we're looking at over the next little bit, you may wish to just wait until the spring of 24 until we're looking at any type of reallocation. So that covers off, I think, sort of some of the background from our water supply update report. The other piece of background that I'd like to speak to you about is, many of you know that late summer, early fall, Council adopted a new water supply agreement with the town of Collingwood. So what that did was, and that was a piece of work that all of this team actually worked diligently on with Collingwood's team for a number of years to put that in place. So what that speaks primarily to is not only an ongoing supply of water and how it's purchased and how it's provided, what levels, what volumes, things like that, but it also speaks to the capacity in a new plant expansion that would be required for those additional volumes to be met. So there's a lot of language in that agreement that speaks to a capital investment from both municipalities to see that plant expanded in Collingwood. So Collingwood has been working diligently away for literally the last couple of years with their design engineer team and our engineering team and our operations team designing that plant expansion. If you're not familiar with the water treatment plant in Collingwood, it's a very difficult site to build on. It's restricted pretty much on all sides. The existing plant has to remain functioning while the new plant is constructed, which obviously lends to more complications when it comes just to the logistics of the construction, given that it's a very constrained site and that the existing plant has to continue to function and continue to function even after the construction. So there's a lot of complications just with building the new plant itself. We also ran into a number of things, poor soil conditions, fractured bedrock, all kinds of issues like that that impacted the type of design that had to be prepared. The approach that Collingwood took was they pre-qualified 3 contractors that can undertake this type of work and this level of complexity of work. And they actually had those pre-qualified contractors work with the design team over the last year or so, more on a constructability issue, so that there was no surprises or little surprises when it comes to thinking how this would actually be built. So they had those guys at the table with them as they walked through the last year or so of the design, focused again primarily on the constructability issues, things like that, so that the design engineer, and I think they went through about 4 or 5 revisions as to how the various pieces would come together. So obviously the contractor's input was extremely valuable as they walked through the last little while. So as you probably know, the bids closed on September from those 3 pre-qualified contractors. The construction estimate to build the project is approximately $212 million from the lowest bidder. That's substantially higher than what certainly we would have liked to have seen. The last public estimate was about $120 million, and that was about a year and a bit ago. We did have further information from the design engineer in the meantime that the prices would probably be higher than the last public estimate, but at the time that information was received, respecting the integrity of the bidding process and the impact that information being public would have on that bidding process, that information was kept confidential. So the total project cost at this point in time is being estimated at approximately $270 million. So obviously that is outside of both the town of New Tecumseh and the town of Collingwood's financial abilities to afford. Our financial team under Lori and Allison's guidance have been working away with Collingwood's financial team looking at various options to address that. So we've looked at provincial, federal contributions. We are continuing to talk to both levels of government. We're looking at different models that were used. Some of you may be familiar with the Innisfil model that was used with the development community to allow for prepayments of certain things. So we've looked at that. I think, Allison, you just had a call the other day with the Canadian Infrastructure Bank, so we're looking at P3 type of options through that. So ultimately, when all of this comes back to council, we're looking for as comprehensive of package of options available for council's consideration. But from a financial perspective, obviously, it's extremely challenging to be faced with that type of bill. So our guys have looked at, as I said, some various different ways of funding that, but just to give you an idea, of the $270 million, the town of New Tecumseh's portion would be about $170 million of that. So that would put us well in excess of our 25% cap from the province as far as our debt ceiling goes. So that's why we're looking to the province and the federal government to assist us. So as I said, we're looking at a number of different options on that front. So what else are we doing to address this? We're looking at things sort of at a short-term solution and an ultimate solution. So again, to address that ultimate solution, which is the plant expansion, some of those different alternative methods that we're looking at, various funding. The town of Collingwood has structured what they're calling a developers task force that's met a couple of times now, and that's to get input from the development community and to look at, again, various options for not only financing, but what else can be looked at as far as the construction of the plant. Are there options with respect to the phasing of the plant, things like that. So we're trying to look at a broad spectrum of things to provide that ultimate solution. On a short term, we're looking at a number of different types of mechanisms that would provide additional water in the short term. So one that Rick and his team have been working on, and you would have heard mentioned, it was certainly mentioned in the water update report, is a well optimization program. That report, I believe, is coming forward on the 30th of October, Rick. So certainly stay tuned for that. We won't get into a lot of details with respect to that initiative right now, but the report on October 30th that will be brought forward for Council's review and consideration will have all the details of where we are right now with that initiative and what that looks like going forward. But essentially, it would provide at least in the ballpark of 2,000 to 2,500 cubic meters of water, which would allow obviously a number of residential units and potentially even some further industrial development to move forward. So, but again, that report's coming forward on October 30th, and I would suggest you certainly watch for the publication of that agenda, which I believe is the Wednesday beforehand. And then certainly Council's discussion that evening will be interesting to see as we present what we've been able to determine with that. So we're hopeful that that project is successful. We've also been working with the town of Collingwood on other projects that could be installed in their existing plant that would also free up additional water. So we're looking at flipping out different types of membranes, because their current plant is a membrane treatment plant. Their new plant will also be membrane based, but we're looking at different types of membranes that we could install in the existing plant to allow for additional water to flow through the pipeline. So we're trying to approach that from as broad a perspective as we can and look at as many different options as we can. So I think that covers off everything that I wanted to hit you guys with a little bit. The timelines for the ultimate solution would be in the area of 28, 29 by the time that the new plant would be online and providing that additional flow through the pipeline. The interim solutions we're looking at actually a lot sooner, which would be in the end of 25 timeframe. So that gives you a bit of an idea, I think, as to some of the background, as well as some of the things that we're dealing with now to try to address the ultimate solution, which is the plant expansion, and some of the options that we're looking at on the interim to address the provision of additional water supply prior to the plant being expanded. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I think that covers off where I think where we wanted to get to today. But again, further to the Mayor's comments, the staff team is here to address any comments or questions that you may have for us from either a technical, an operational, land use planning, or a financial perspective. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. So very detailed report, that's greatly appreciated. So we're dealing with two issues, the long term, the short term. We have options. We have the report coming October 30th, which is very detailed, and I believe it's a good news story that we're very optimistic about. You've heard the options that are available, and just to reiterate it again, can council reallocate from industrial to commercial to residential? Yes, it can, but a lot of this depends on how much water we're gonna get. And I don't want to put the director on the spot here, but we always talk in cubes and meters and stuff. What is that, like, what does 1 cube mean? Is that one house? Like, I'm sorry, I'm sure lots of people out here know it, but I know there's some people. So when we say 2,000 cubes, do you have a translation for homes, a guesstimate?
Through your worship, yes. Generally, a good rule of thumb is 1 to 1. it's a little bit less, it's 0.9 of a cubic meter, but for just to make the math easy, 1 cubic meter equals 1 single family residential.
Okay, thanks, Eric, I just wanted to put that out there so everybody knows what the numbers are. So, what I'd like to do now is you've listened to the CAO, you know where we were, where we are, and where we're going. We have our complete senior management team, so I'm gonna open up the questions. If anybody has any questions that they'd like answered. Sir.
Thank you, Mayor Norcross, and thanks for the presentation. So just hypothetically speaking, I'm sure that the current development charges bylaw includes a portion of these costs previously as anticipated. Has there been any sort of ballparking done if the 270 million, which is a new tech share, and whatever is attributed to new growth potentially, what would that mean in terms of roughly what a development charge would look like?
I'm gonna go to the GM, sorry, go ahead.
Through your worship to, I know Mr. Schickadance. We haven't done the exact calculation because this has been a moving target. For example, Rick has just come forward with opportunities to expedite some of the water infrastructure, and that changes the amount as well. So, to answer your question, we haven't really done that calculation. Also, to make things more complex, we're dealing with Bill 23, which also affects the way we can do our implementation of our development charges.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Don't be shy because we do want to hear from you. Sir.
This is in regards to development happening in Wheaton. Just a quick question. For the current subdivision that's been approved, through you to the director, sorry. I believe when he first started, he was saying that you guys have sufficient allocation for approved developments as it stands, or did I mishear?
I'll go to the CEO, to Director Battery.
Through your worship to the speaker, I believe that you're asking about the Flato developments.
Oh, correct.
Okay. Those developments were progressing without water allocation. So when our CAO was talking about there were developments with allocation, those ones have been approved previously, the allocation has been provided. The developer in Beaton has moved forward without that allocation.
Okay.
Again, subject to council approval, he may be one of the ones who could be considered for some of this new water that is being created in, potentially through our well optimization as soon as 2026.
And follow-up, so to the developer, well, in my instance, we got new letters stating that their current agreement that was, I think, expired last November, with council giving an allocation, we were told that there might be new allocation dates for this coming July 2024. I was wondering if you guys can speak to that.
I don't think, do you want to? Okay, go ahead,
Through this, your worship to the speaker, the developer has never received any allocation from the town. So I'm not aware of any agreements that we had that expired with allocation, or if there's been any discussion with respect to the allocation. There is a queue with a.
Thank you, Director.
And please feel free to reach out to any of the staff members for any further questions you have, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just want to confirm that I heard correctly. So the absolute earliest that these developers in Beaton Flato can get water allocation is 2026. Did I hear that correct?
Go ahead, Mr. CEO.
So through you, Mayor Norcross, to the speaker, if council chooses not to reallocate, that is the progression that we would see, yes. Depending on the well optimization project and the success of that, as well as alternate methods that we're working with Collingwood on, the earliest that water would be available would be give or take about the end of 2025, perhaps a little bit earlier, depending on how successful those projects go. So that would be the earliest that water would be available. But as I did mention, the prerogative to reallocate industrial water to residential uses is with council. And they could make that decision pending any further information that we bring forward. That's what I mentioned. Our suggestion to council was to just be mindful of the situation we're in. We will bring forward further information in the spring of 2024. At that point in time, you may wish to consider a reallocation. Having said that, it's council's prerogative to reallocate that water sooner or not at all.
There's the gentleman at the.
Perhaps for the benefit of the gentleman who was about the water allocation, it is best to define what approved development is. To help them out and understand what that is, anyone else that might not know what an approved development means.
Your worship, to the speaker, when I speak of approved development, the developments may have draft plans, draft plan conditions, but until they've reached the point of a subdivision agreement where the town has actually allocated the water, that's when they'd be able to move forward to a building permit. Having a draft plan, one of the conditions in them is specifically that until the town allocates you water for water or sanitary, you cannot move forward to a building permit stage.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, hi.
Okay, just a couple of, I think some clarification involved.
We're having a little.
I think that there's a few of us that have purchased with Plateau, and we do have a timeline on when to sign this new document. So having some clarification of when this water is going to become available, I think is really important. With that being said, if you're saying to us that, Plateau was not, one of these developments that was given permission to build, then that's another conversation entirely. Is that what you're saying?
I'll look at the CEO.
Through your worship to the speaker, I'm struggling to follow what you're asking, what the question you're asking. Are you asking whether Flato was given allocation? Or are you asking?
Well, clearly they were not given allocation, right?
Right.
That's why we're in this predicament. That's fine. But there is a date in which we are supposed to, decide basically whether or not to move forward with our purchase, right? So I'm wondering if I'm waiting 1 year, 2 years, 3 years for a house.
Okay, I don't want to jump in, but that report on October 30th, is that the one that's gonna tell us? Go ahead, Director.
Based on what, through your worship, based on what the CAO was saying, I think there's a couple of things in motion. We have our well optimization that's coming on October 30th. That'll help us at the 2026 stage. We'll bring another report to council in the spring of this coming year, 2024. At that time, council may wish to consider reallocating potentially industrial waters, and we'll have a better understanding of what's happening within our system so that
Okay.
we can give council some advice and they can make considerations based on that.
Thank you.
So again, sorry, and just clarify.
No, it's just, go ahead, clarify.
So 2024 is, where we decide if we're gonna get, if new, homes are getting the water as opposed to industrial units, is that correct?
Go ahead, Mr. CEO.
Sorry, I'm just trying to
No,
clarify.
and we wanna explain to you, and if I'm not doing a good job, I apologize,
Like,
but I'll get somebody who
I'm
can do it better.
I'm just crystallizing it because, like I said, I know I'm not the only one,
Yeah.
obviously, in this room that has the same questions here. But we need as much clarity as you can provide us,
Sure.
so that we can make an executive decision.
No, 100%, I'm totally agree with that, and we can always have discussions tomorrow, the next day too, if other things come up, but I'll turn to the CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Press. So, to answer your question and hopefully provide you with some clarification, because I completely understand that there are a number of moving parts here. Our own team is trying to manage all of those. The other factor is obviously the town is not privy to the agreement that any homeowner has with any developer or builder. So I'm not entirely certain of the terms and conditions of that. But having said that, the additional water would be expected to come online by the end of 25, should the well optimization project be successful. Having said that, the the report that Rick and his guys are working on now that will come to council in a couple of weeks may give council a level of comfort that they decide it's fair to reallocate water at that point in time. Okay? So it could be reallocated sooner than that. It may not be reallocated at all. Okay? So I can appreciate your need for clarification, and we'll try and give you as much as we can. But right now, the best we can say is this is the path that we're working on. Having said that, we may gain a higher level of comfort earlier than what we're anticipating. We can have those discussions with council, and the ultimate decision can be made to reallocate even sooner than what we originally thought we could do.
Can I point out, sorry, through your worship?
Oh, okay, go ahead, please.
Can I point out that this potential for reallocation of water is not a large number of units? So it is not even close to the kind of units that we're talking about with the well optimization program. Rick, what's the units that are potentially available for reallocation?
Again, probably, if all the industrial, sorry, Your Worship.
No,
through you,
please go ahead.
To the audience, if all the industrial water allocation for 23, 24, 25, and 26 was changed to residential, you're approximately getting 250 cubic meters. And that would mean that there's no industrial development available until after 26.
And 250 cubic meters equals 250 homes.
Townwide.
And we don't know yet that would even be going to our developer.
It
So
would be
if
a
he's
dis-
250 of someone else. Do you know who's first in line out of all these developers? I'm sorry.
No,
It's
that's
just,
fine.
like I said, we've been very patient, long waiting, and we just need some answers. So if you can give us again a little more information, that'd be great.
Through Your Worship to the speaker, the town does have an allocation policy. And basically, the allocation policy speaks to who's ready to develop. In this particular moment in time, the Beaton development, Fletcher Meadows, they have a subdivision agreement in place. They also have some model homes. So with respect to the developers that are currently at the town, that would be, they are furthest along in the process. So all things being equal, and with all the policy, they would be the next, and I believe there are approximately 88 units in that phase. And it would still be at council's discretion as to whether they would give those units there. And then the balance would be depending on who comes up next with respect to being in a subdivision agreement stage.
Do we know who comes next? Can you give us the top three?
Again, it would be the top three today, based on where they are in their development process, or in their design review process, sorry, they've got their planning approvals in place. It'd be Fletcher Meadows, then there's another developer in Alliston called Honey Hill, and then after that would be the Beaton Meadows in Alliston, based on where they are today. So Beaton, thank you.
So Green Ridge or Eden Village? Sorry.
Green Ridge.
Green Ridge first. Green Ridge first.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the public? Okay, I'm gonna go with the order of the hands went up, please, but I'll keep track. So please at the back.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a land use planning question. The county proposed official plan amendment 7, which sets out the, growth allocations for the Tecumseh by way of, the number of hectares to be assigned to you. That document has been with the province, I think, for almost a year now. And I wondered if you had any input as to if that document is going to be approved by the province or as is, or whether the province is going to modify it or reject it.
Look to our, Director Best.
Through Mayor Norcross to yourself, with respect to the county's official plan amendment with the growth management, the province is currently reviewing it. This is about the only information I have, and they have not provided any indication of when it will be approved. It could be complicated by the fact that the province has out for comment the provincial policy statement, which would revoke the growth plan. And so I don't know what the timing is with respect to the province. They will not answer those questions.
Thank you, gentlemen in the back. back, please? Yes, sir.
How much potential water would be available after the well operation? Coming up soon, I came a little bit, so I don't know if that was discussed before.
That's okay, I believe it was, I think it was 2,000, sorry, go ahead, Director.
Through your worship, again, the CEO mentioned it was between 2,000 and 2,500 cubic meters.
2,000 to 2,500 cubic meters. You were next, thank you for your patience.
Oh, no problem. I just have a question in regards to the water demand update that was put out, that had been mentioned. And, my question is just that in that water demand update, there had been, a recommendation to lower the average daily residential usage for, and in terms of like a rate. And I was just curious to know if that was going to be something that was considered in with the new water allocations in order to kind of provide a lower number to increase more units that can take on more water, if that makes any sense?
I think I understand, so I'd look to the Director.
Through your worship to the speaker. When we did the last allocation or demand update, we did reduce the per capita demands in that report. And again, that was fixed. I would caution, and one of the reasons that we did that was we had the census data and we had some information. The problem with trying to reallocate that number without census data is that we can identify pretty clearly what our demands are on an annual basis, but the population is a little bit more of a challenge for us. We can estimate it, but then what happens is we start estimating that population, start dividing it by our demand. The number may go down, but this is a true representation of what's happening up there. So generally, in consultation with our consultants, we would look at, do we have enough data to comfortably establish the population? And if that's the case, we may come up with a new number there. However, because we've established it and the fluctuations in that number would be minimal, we'd likely, again, depending on this comfort we have when we get the data pulled together, we may leave it alone, or we may actually look at coming up with a new number. So nothing determined at that time.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the audience? Sorry, sir.
Great, just a quick question. I'm curious what the design capacity is of the proposed treatment plant. Is it to accommodate the expected population growth in 2051, or is it something a little less?
Board? Sorry, Director.
Through your worship to the speaker. There's, the first phase is intended to get the town to its 2031 population targets. There is a second phase in there that will get us down the road. However, to get us to the full 2051 numbers, there would have to be another expansion, or alternatively, we'd have to look at alternative supplies to the town. So it's not the 2051, no.
Okay, is that? Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm just looking out to members that are here today. Is there any other comments or questions? So we have a sheet here. If you'd like to be notified, we ask that you sign it and provide your email. But also, if questions arise later, especially with the one individuals here, please feel free to reach out to us immediately. We'll get back to you and we can discuss. And we want to keep the open, honest dialogue going. We want to make sure we communicate properly and as quickly as we can. We want input from everybody that's affected by this. So if there are no other questions that are being required to be asked, up to the Deputy Mayor. Sure.
Do we know approximately at this point how much the well optimization study or plan is going to cost and how that's going to be funded?
I don't know if the report's free. I'll look through
Through your worship to the Deputy Mayor, as that report hasn't been released yet, when the report's released, that's when those details will be coming in. Sorry, that's the best answer I can give.
And just to confirm, when is that report coming? October 3rd?
And it'll be released on Wednesday.
Pardon me? Released on the 25th? Yeah, the report will be released on our website on the 25th. Everyone's good? Okay. Sorry, thank you. Councilor Rappin, please.
I was just wondering, could you give us the numbers for 2031? We're gonna be okay with the current, what's happening up in Collingwood, but then we've got to expand. Is there anything we can do as a council to encourage our developers to invest in gray water and stuff like that, where we're reducing that cubic 0.9 to 0.8 or 0.7 because we're reusing our water within the household? just to, so, because we've got all this development that's about to happen in our town for the next 10 years. It'd be great if these new houses actually had some of that stuff in it, so that maybe less of a, I still think it's gonna be a headache 20 years from now, but maybe slightly less.
No, certainly, that's a good point, and we can bring that up on the October 30th meeting when the report is released, and get more information on that. Oh, I'll look to the director, sorry, I didn't see you down there, sir. Go ahead.
It's an interesting question, or through your worship to Councillor Rathman, it's an interesting question, because on a residential component, we actually do very well from a water conservation. Basically, there's an industry standard, and the standard has goals and targets that you can practically achieve with existing infrastructure. New infrastructure is a bit of a different picture, because you can put like cisterns and other things and gray water systems in. In existing systems, it's harder to do that in those homes. And we're fairly close to that target goal, if you will, with our existing residential. There is some opportunity in our institutional, commercial, or industrial. But it too is, we're not that far off the mark, and we only have a couple of major industries like the hospital, Honda, and Baxter, and a few of those. And really what's driving that efficiency is the cost of water. Every year we increase the cost, and then that's a huge expense to both the homeowner or the industry, and then they drive down the efficiency. But I think there's opportunity on the new developments going forward to put those in, and my area will have a report that comes to council in November that will detail some of those options. But I can say most of it will be around building a strategy, if you will, on water conservation, building in for new developments, and the developers like such in the room, opportunities where they can build that into their designs, and then look for opportunities through credits or other things that might be an option.
So can I just follow up on that, because I wanna make sure it's clear for me, because I don't fully understand it. So and no offense to any developers in the room. So council can't tell a developer how to build something, but we can encourage through tax credits and incentives. Is that how it works?
I think you can do both, or sorry, through your worship.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Director. Warren? Okay. Okay, please.
I think to a certain extent we can do both. I mean, there'll be limitations on what we can direct, but we can through policy. And then that could be a choice or an option that council may choose. And then you could go the other way through encouragement and incentives and stuff like that.
Thank you. Good points.
Here.
1 second, please, sir. Councillor Rathman, is that?
No, it's good, thank you very much.
You're now up? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that hasn't asked a question or comment, because I wanna make sure everybody gets an opportunity? Councillor Gabbard, go ahead, please. Ma'am, I'll come to you.
Is there anything unethical or precedent setting about having private industry invest in our water systems to help offset these costs?
I'll look to the CAO for that, or General Manager.
Through you, Mayor Norcross, I wouldn't call it unethical, no. I think that would be a discussion certainly we want to have with council with respect to the benefits or the advantages or disadvantages of private investment. But no, I wouldn't classify it as unethical.
I don't see any other, sorry, the lady in the back first, please.
No, that's okay.
No, go ahead.
I'm just, again, sorry, I'm just wondering if, there's any builders that have already been allocated water that aren't building? And if there's any way, you know, for the builders who have already broken ground and have serviced their land to get that water instead?
Okay, so just kind of further back, the question is, do we have allocation to builders out there now that aren't using it?
Yeah.
I'll go to the Director of Battery.
Through your worship to the speaker, there are currently 2 developers who do have substantial allocation. However, they are actively working. I think more the issue for them is maybe sales as opposed to just sitting on the allocation. But yeah, we have a couple of developers who do have allocation, and I think their building program just isn't progressing as quickly as well.
Okay, so sorry, just to clarify, they haven't broken ground yet, or have they broken ground? they serviced the land? Are they ready to go?
Through your worship, they are further along than, other developers. They have broken ground, they have a subdivision agreement, council's allocated the water, they are in an active building program.
Thank you.
Just gentlemen, sorry.
No, that's a good question. Has Commonwealth, always been your, like, your water source?
Thank you. Through Mayor Norcross, from a surface water perspective, yes, sir. The pipeline was constructed approximately 25 years ago with a big expansion at that time that provided surface water to New Tecumseh. New Tecumseh does also have a groundwater system that does service both Alliston and Beaton. Tottenham has its separate groundwater system.
Further to her question, just
Go ahead.
Just kind of define Bray Ground. Are they serviced? Is it serviced, roads in? Are they ready to go for permits? That's what I think.
Yes.
Through your worship to the speaker,
Thank you
yes,
for
they
clarifying.
have
That's exactly
roads
what I
in, they have services
They have
in the
roads in, they have
ground,
services.
they are ready to pull buildings, and they are pulling building permits.
Who's the builder?
So, we have two builders currently. One is Treetops Development, they have allocation, and the other one is Rizzardo, which is Alliston West Phase 3.
And, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but, how many lots have already been allocated to them? And then what's left? That's kind of, I don't know if you know that off the top of your head.
Again, your worship, I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I would recommend you will look at the, report that we brought forward in May. We will be updating it next spring, and then it'll be much better communicated.
Are there any other comments or questions? Well, thank you everybody very much for taking your time and coming out. Please stay in contact. We'll stay in contact with you. Visit our website. Reach out to any of us for any information you require, big or small. We'll certainly provide it to you in a very timely fashion. So I do have a formality that I have to go through. It's the confirming bylaw. Be resolved that bylaw 2023-088 confirm the proceedings of special council at its meeting October 19, 2023 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Cox, Councillor Biss. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And then adjournment, be resolved, the meeting adjourned at
4:44.
Thank you very much. So Councillor Mastrosky to move it. Councillor Gabrick, will you second that, please? Thank you very much. Thank you. We're adjourned, but please feel free to talk and then go and ask any questions.